Hi everyone, welcome to another video for SimonsSaysStamp.com. Today I'm starting out with some marshmallow cardstock from Basil, and I've cut it in half, cut the card base, and I'm scoring it at 5.5 so that it's a top folding card. And I'm going to use the other half of that cardstock, and I'm going to die cut a few things. The first one is the Sunshine die from Simon Says Stamp. Comes with a really cool sun ray pattern, and it cuts out all the negative space so that you can put it on your card. So I'm just running that through my Big Shot machine. You can kind of see what the pattern looks like a little bit when it's all cut out. I'm also going to be using the Banner Trio die set from W+9, and I'm really only going to be using the middle shape, the mid-size banner, but I cut all three because I can take the largest and the smallest, and I can put that back in the packaging with the dies, and I just slide it into the back of the packaging, and then next time I need the large die or the small die, I already have it cut out. So I'm going back to the card base, and I'm just placing that sunshine pattern over top, just marking a line right underneath. This is giving me an area for some stamping. I'm going to be stamping a lot of bars of color. I'm using soft apricot, soft cantaloupe, pale tomato, orange soda, and butter bar. These are all shadow inks from Hero Arts. And I'm using the border stamp from the Simon Says Stamp Happy Everyday stamp set. And I just put that up against a ruler so it would be straight when I mount it on my stamp press. That's just going to make it so that the long skinny stamp doesn't move around before I get it mounted. And then I'm just starting to stamp all the different bands of color. I didn't do these in any particular order. I just started stamping, and the only thing I did make sure of is I didn't want the same color side by side. So I did kind of want to move those around a little bit and get different colors. So after that was all stamped, I erased the little pencil line that I marked at the bottom. And then I cut some foam squares into smaller pieces, just into thirds. Seemed to work really well. Applied that to the back of the Sunshine die cut, and then applied it directly over top of those bars of color that I stamped earlier. And these little foam strips are the perfect size so that they'll be hidden behind the die cut. But I really wanted it to stand up away from the stamping, so you could definitely see that it was a separate piece. So then I took that banner, and I wanted it to be the same color as one of the colors that I stamped. So I pressed the butter bar ink pad onto the banner, and it's really, really wet now because of all that ink. So I used my heat tool to dry it. And then I tested it because I'm going to do some embossing. So I needed to test to make sure the embossing powder wouldn't stick to it. So I used an embossing magic bag and sprinkled on some embossing powder. And it seemed to come off really well, like it wasn't sticking. But you'll see here in a minute that I had some trouble. I'm using the Inside and Out Sayings stamp set from Simon Says Stamp. And I'm once again coating that banner and then stamping the sentiment in Versamark ink. This is the sentiment that says, "You are amazing." And I stamped it on there, and then when I went to sprinkle on the embossing powder, it didn't exactly work. It got stuck, and I couldn't get it to shake off. But I wanted to try to salvage the piece because I'd already die cut it, and I'd applied all that ink. I didn't want to waste it. So I ended up using my fingers to wipe off all that embossing powder. Sometimes, well, most of the time this doesn't work, so this is sort of an experiment. But I wiped off as much as I could, used my heat tool to dry it one more time because I was just thinking it was that wet ink that was attracting all that powder. And then without stamping again, I tried the powder again, and it seemed to still pick up where that Versamark ink was, but I was able to shake off some of the powder. Ended up also using a dry brush to help brush off some of that embossing powder. And then I heat set it. And that was my greeting for the card. You'll still see a little bit of some white dots kind of around the words, especially when you see the up-close shot at the end of the video. But for the most part, I was able to salvage that. So I trimmed the card to be a little more square, and I corner rounded the bottom corners with the corner chomper. And now I'm using the matching sentiment for that phrase from the stamp set. So it says, "You are amazing. One day I'll catch up, but remember, you were amazing first." So that's the cool thing about that stamp set. It has an outside saying and an inside saying. So that's the card for today. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys next time.